And a statesman is defined as a senior politician who is widely respected for integrity and impartial concern for the public good. Kwame Nkrumah was a statesman. Nelson Mandela was a statesman. Malcolm, Robeson, King would have made fine statesmen. Barack Obama has the mind and the heart to become a statesman. The statesmen are people who are of service to the people. They put service above profit. And they come from the people to serve the people. They're not imposed upon them by outsiders. So it is our responsibility to develop a sense of service within our community first. It begins first within your household, first within your block, first within your community. Then it moves outside into the greater world. Carter G. Woodson, in his book, The Miseducation of the Negro, talked about the need for service rather than leadership. This is in 1933, The Miseducation of the Negro, a book that is probably more relevant today than when it was originally written. I want to read to you some of Woodson's comments about service and its relationship to us. He says here that if the Negro could abandon the idea of leadership and instead stimulate a larger number of the race to take up definite tasks and sacrifice their time and energy doing these things efficiently, the race might accomplish something worthwhile. The race needs workers, not leaders. Such workers will solve the problems that race leaders talk about and raise money to enable them to talk about more. When you hear a man talking, always inquire about what he is doing or what he has done for humanity. Oratory and resolutions do not avail much. For if they did, the Negro would be in a paradise on earth. It may be well to repeat the old saying that old men talk about what they have done, young men talk about what they are doing, and fools of what they expect to do. The Negro race has a rather large share of the last mentioned class. If we can finally succeed in translating the idea of leadership into that of service, we may soon find that it is possible to lift the Negro to a higher level. Under leadership, we have come into the ghetto. By service within the ranks, we may work our way out of the ghetto. Under leadership, we have been constrained to do the bidding of others. Under service, we may work out a program in the light of our own circumstances. Under leadership, we have become poverty-stricken. By service, we may teach the masses how to earn an honest living. Under leadership, we've been made to despise our own possibilities and to develop into parasites. By service, we may prove sufficient unto the task of self-development and contribute to our modern culture. It may be difficult for some of us to let go of our old ways and move into a new tomorrow. But if you still feel the need for a leader, let it be a servant leader and not a self-serving leader. If you're ready for a change, know with no uncertainty that we are standing on the verge of a new tomorrow. And that new tomorrow begins today, at this moment. As Barack says, we must be the change that we are waiting for. The change won't come from the White House or anybody else's house. The change begins in your house. And once you understand who you are and what you need, then you will organize yourselves to let your voice be heard on a larger level so that you can affect meaningful and lasting change. The change begins for many people when you travel outside of this country, when you leave America and see the world. Traveling outside of this country is one of the best things that anybody can do because it helps you put your life in perspective. It helps you realize at one very basic and fundamental level that this is the wealthiest nation on earth. And the average poor person in this country lives better than the average person and 90% of the people on this planet. And what are we doing with our money? What are we doing with the resources that we have at hand? we're making other folk wealthy. We've heard the statistics. That's our doing. That's not someone else, that is us. And so I've learned from my own personal experiences the benefit of traveling out of the country. I made my first trip to Africa in 1980 when I went to Egypt with Dr. Benji. That trip changed my life forever because I had the opportunity to see with my own eyes information that I had never been exposed to in elementary school, high school, or college, even though I attended predominantly black schools all of my life. Teachers who looked like me didn't teach me the truth. Not because they didn't like me, but because they didn't know the truth themselves. They had never cultivated a deep appreciation for who they were as African people and travel outside of this country and see what we have done and bring those experiences back into the classroom. This past July, I made my 41st trip to Egypt. And it was a trip, this trip was basically my most profound trip. I saw things. I came back a changed person after this trip. I saw things that made me begin to see myself and my world differently. I'm working on a new book. I'm working on the second volume of Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization. And so I plan to have it out next November. So I decided that I was going to go to Egypt early before my group. I normally take my groups in the summer. And I decided to go to Egypt early so I could do some research for this new book. And one of my colleagues in Egypt, an Egyptian guide that I've used for the last 20 years, have been encouraging me to come to Egypt early so that he could take me on a safari in the Western Desert. Safari that most African Americans, well, actually no African American that he knows of has ever done this trip. So I decided, let me go out into the desert with this brother and spend like 4 days in the desert and see what's out there, and then I'll spend the rest of my time in Luxor doing some research, getting some photographs, preparing myself for this next book before my group comes over and have to be involved with this, my group for 2 weeks. These 4 days that I spent in the desert were incredible. Because in the middle of the Sahara Desert, we went from the West Sahara Desert, west of the mountains, in the region between the Western Mountain and Libya. We moved from Cairo in the north to Luxor in the south, and traversed the distance of about 600 miles in the desert. Now, this is real bona fide desert. But in the middle of the desert, I made some incredible finds. I found in the desert on one day shark's teeth in the sand. 8 million year old shark's teeth. Yeah. Which means that at one point in time, millions of years ago, all of this was an ocean. Right. I found seashells in one area, seashells all over the sand. In another area of the desert, I found petrified trees, which meant that after the ocean receded, this was a lush tropical area. And the physical evidence I held in my hands in the form of a petrified piece of tree trunk. One evening, we were camping out in the desert, in the middle of the desert, sleeping on a blanket on the sand, pitch black darkness. Woke up about 2:30 in the morning, and for the first time in my life, I understood the expression, a blanket of stars in the sky. I could look up and every square inch of the blackness of night was dotted with the light, star, planet. I mean, it was gorgeous, it was beautiful. I'd never really seen the sky before. And as I'm, watching the sky, all of a sudden I began to make out constellations. I began to make out the star Sirius. And then to the left of Sirius, I saw this cluster of stars and gas known as the Milky Way, stretched from horizon to horizon, all the way across the sky. And then I saw shooting stars. And then, as I was up for like a couple of hours just taking all of this in and realizing that all we are is flesh and bones on this rock in space with billions and billions of other rocks planets, stars, galaxies, solar systems. And it makes you realize how insignificant our lives are on one very basic and fundamental level. And on another hand, it makes you realize how precious life is. How precious life is. Our ancestors in Kemet, thousands of years ago, saw those same stars. They saw the Milky Way. And in developing their culture, they created along the Nile River pyramids at Giza, which were a symbolic and astronomical representation of stars in the sky. There's research that's shown that the 3 stars at Giza are a representation of the 3 stars in the constellation of Orion, which the people of Kemet knew as Sahu, was associated with Asar. And in their text, in the very last lecture that Dr. Asa Hilliard did last year in Aswan, Egypt, five days before he died, his very last lecture, he talked about the stars in Kemet. And he related those stars to their sacred texts, their spiritual texts. And he talked about the fact that in their text, the so-called pyramid texts, they talked about the fact that when you die, your soul will ascend into heaven, into the Anduwa, into this place which is that same location, the first star in the belt of Orion, was the place where the souls of all folk went. And then he shared with us that NASA has acknowledged that it is that same star, it is that same segment of the universe, which is where stars are born. Galaxies are born. Our ancestors knew with crystal clarity things that we don't have the slightest idea. There's so much knowledge and information that is waiting for us to rediscover. So much information that is at our fingertips. But if you don't like to read, if you're too busy criticizing somebody, tearing somebody down, and engaging in activities to lift yourself up, you will never know a fraction of what there is to know. It's your life. It's your time. You have to use it to empower yourself. And then once you are empowered, then use that knowledge and that power to transform your world, your community. This is the time in which we live. The most significant part of that trip, though, was when I went to Luxor, and a colleague of mine told me about this Egyptologist who was digging in Luxor, a Russian Egyptologist who happens to live here in New York City. He introduced me to her, and what she showed me just took me on another level. This woman has discovered 3 tombs of Kushite noblemen from the 25th dynasties that are as important to the African community as the discovery of the King Tut's tomb has been to the European and contemporary Egyptian community. She's found this knowledge, and I went into the tomb. I've seen the tomb. I've seen the significance of what is there. They are tombs of Karakabashkin, who is the vizier or mayor of the city of Waset, or Luxor today, under Shabaka,